Hello and welcome to today's episode of Two Pigs in the Pod, a podcast for the people of Glazing by the people of Glazing. I'm George Lewis, your usual host of Two Pigs in the Pod, but I'm not your host today. Today we have hosting it is Sarah Ball. Welcome to the show, Sarah. And who is your guest?
Well, today, in a really wonderful twist, you are the guest. Um,
Oh,
we figured that after a year of you doing this, that it was really time for us to know a bit more about you and to see how everything had gone this year. So,
the
yeah,
pressure's on.
the pressure is on.
Yeah,
For me too, because
yeah.
I don't normally do this. So, welcome, George.
Thank you.
Um, you normally do all this spiel about the window industry and all of that sort of stuff, and I know that for most people who've been watching the podcast on a watching and listening to the podcast on a regular basis, you'll know that we are the podcast for the people in glazing by the people in glazing, and that's really important to us because we're doing everything from the inside. We're not doing it from the outside.
Yeah.
Um, so I can't imagine that there's many people who are listening or watching this that don't know who you are. But for those who don't, can you briefly explain who you are and what you do?
Yes, so as you said, I'm George Lewis. For people that don't know me, I've been in the industry sort of 7 or 8 years now, and yeah, I'm the editor of at Pigs and the host of this podcast normally.
Fantastic. And you're clearly not a newcomer into the industry. So how did you end up in the pig's role?
So unsurprisingly to many, as we've had on every episode of this, people say, I don't know how I or I fell into it, and I was the same really. I was fresh out of uni and trying to look for a job, and yeah, found it very tough to get into the industry even with a degree. So it shows you how hard it is to was and still is to get into it. But managed to find a job at Unity Media, which is now part of Mark Allen Group, and yeah, was there as a production assistant, so working more on the advertising side of things, and yeah, so that was sort of the route into this industry. They also had car magazines and motor magazines, so I had a sort of bit of a introduction to that, but in no way or shape or form was to do any writing or any editorial stuff. It was just,
Right.
but my hope was that one day there would be a job that came up there on one of the magazines where I could become an assistant editor. And yeah, so that was how it happened after a couple of years as a production assistant. Andy Dunn at the time said there's a role come up on Building Products magazine, which some of them might know for the wider construction industry. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I'm ready and wanting to get into it. I didn't know the industry at all, but yeah, tried to give it a go. And here we are, sort of still in the construction industry 8 years later.
Excellent. So, before you got into it, was there anything, did you know anything about glazing, windows?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It,
Cars sounds a lot more glamorous than
well, yeah, exactly. But I
windows.
probably knew just as less much about that as I did the construction industry. It was wanting to learn and be there, the right place at the right time. And yeah, once it did come up, I was just like, well, now I'm in it. I need to learn all about it, and that was how I still am now. I still want to learn all the time about new products, new people, whatever it may be. I'm always wanting to still learn now.
Yeah, it's a crazy industry for that, isn't it, really? I
Yeah,
mean, well, you know the answers that you get on a regular basis when you ask
yeah,
that question, and it is pretty much the same. I mean, it might be in different bits of the supply chain and stuff like that, but the answer is pretty much the same. I came into it, found out more. It's
yeah.
interesting. I've stayed. Yeah. So, what's the one thing that in your new role? Well, it's not that so new now, is it? Now,
A year, the crazy, yeah.
absolutely, and what a year it's been. But what was the one thing in this job that you didn't expect?
I guess I didn't expect to learn so much and actually know how big the industry is. I know people when people say, "Oh, you work in the glazing industry," it's like, "Oh, well, it's just a window or a door," but it's so much more than that. And I learned that quite quickly that it's for the outside world, I guess people that are not in our industry, you say you work in the glazing sector, but once you're in it, you go, wow, this is a huge industry with lots of companies, massive, obviously global companies, right down to small fabricators and people like that, and even down further into installers, which it's a massive supply chain that goes right across the UK and worldwide.
Yeah, and I love the way that it goes right down into local communities as well,
Yeah,
because I think that's where, people don't necessarily see it. In the car industry, you get sort of big global conglomerates, and then nothing really goes down to that sort of granular level. But with the glazing industry, it really gets down into, like, most small towns and villages will have somebody who's doing something in the glazing industry.
yeah, and
So,
another thing that I didn't expect, and it's only happened in this year, as we've had many, is the charity side of thing. That I'm sure we'll come on to it a bit more with pigs, but yeah, that sort of shocked me this year in this role, is how much charity stuff goes on. I didn't know that. Being the editor on, or assistant editors on magazines, you get a little taste of it, I guess, through PR stories and things like that come through. But yeah, since starting on pigs in at the start of the year, I'm shocked and overwhelmed at how much goes on and how many different companies and people raise so much money for charity, all different charities.
yeah, yeah, and it makes it really special, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, if you could go back in time at the beginning of your career and tell yourself something, what would you tell yourself?
I'd say to don't try and get out. Or, I've tried to. There's been roles that come up, and thought, oh, the grass is greener as such. But it's always dragged me back in, and I love it. I love the industry. I've never sort of taken it for granted what it is, and the people in it. And yeah, I would say you obviously want to do things and sort of progress, but actually what we're doing now is amazing, and the industry is a really exciting time. So stick at it and keep learning, and yeah, keep having. Don't be afraid to ask the questions, whether they're hard questions or easy questions. But yeah, always learn, I think, is for me is important. I don't feel like I'm the finished product by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah, even if we probably had this podcast in 5 years' time, I would still say the same thing, that yeah, wanting to learn and wanting to yeah, do more stuff.
So, you said it's an exciting time at the moment. So, what's making it exciting like that?
I think because we're going through a bit of a as an industry, and I'm sure people that have been on the show can say the same thing about their day to day job. Obviously, I see it from a slightly different perspective, but it's been a tough year. It's been a tough few years, but actually, like, there's a lot of things that I feel like is coming out that are exciting to be a part of. We've had guests on, like Mark Hanley, for example, building our skills. I think that is growing and growing in terms of getting these new people into the industry, because we need to do something. It's obviously it's the conversation we probably have the most in our industry, is trying to get new people. And yeah, I think things like that are really exciting. And I think having sort of been out of the industry and working for a glass manufacturing magazine, the sustainability side of things is massively going on in that industry. And I feel like we're on that path as well, where a lot more companies are thinking about sustainability, which it might be a buzzword to some companies, but unfortunately it's here, and it's obvious with certain things that happen, that we need to change our ways. And I think that's, yeah, what's exciting about it, is to see how companies do these sustainability goals and achieve them.
Yeah. So, if that's the exciting bit, what's your favourite bit of your job?
Well, I mean, my favorite part, and it's always been my favorite part from I started to now, being on the podcast and writing stuff for pigs, is always been the people. I've That's what's kept me in the industry and kept me wanting to talk to people. I loved interviewing people and then writing it up for the magazine, and now I do the same thing, but I do it on a podcast, where I get to ask the questions on a podcast, which is amazing, and something that, as people will say, will know that I wanted to do for years is to do an industry podcast. And yeah, here we are doing it, and we've had some brilliant guests on this year, from people that are well known throughout the industry to people that might not be as well known, but they all have their stories. They all have, like we said at the start, they all have their reasons for being in our industry. And yeah, that's what I love the most is hearing the stories, hearing how people started, and how they've made their companies successful, and just having a general chat is something that I love.
So I'm going to pull forward one of the questions that you always ask our guests, which is, who would you really like, as a guest? Who's your like key person in the industry, or maybe even outside of the industry that you'd like to get onto the podcast that you think would give like really good value to our readers and listeners and
There's
watchers?
there's loads, and I don't want to obviously, because we might get them on, or we might scare them away by me saying their name. But I guess from an editorial background and working on the magazines, I'd love to get some of the editors on, to see.
Okay.
I'd love to, that there's people that have been in the industry and been on the magazine for a long time, like Luke Wood at Glass Times. I used to work with Luke, so I think that would be a nice conversation. We've sort of shared many years together in the industry, and obviously working with him, and now what, both on magazines. So yeah, I think I'd like to have a grill into some of the glazing editors. So watch out, you lot. I might come for you.
That'd be really good because it would be like you'd both want to ask the
Yeah,
questions.
exactly. Yeah, we'd both be really awkward that it's actually, yeah, we're not in control of it.
Or we'll maybe have to set that up.
Yeah.
We'll maybe have to set that up. We can talk to him
Yeah,
about
they're
that.
definitely not gonna do it now. They'll absolutely be scared off by us being by me saying it on a recording.
So, your favorite part of the job is obviously your podcasts and stuff like that. Now, you need to be really, really careful, bearing in mind who is asking this question.
Yeah.
But what's your least favorite bit of the job?
Oh, I can give there's nothing, there's no least favorite part of my job, but
Liar.
definitely, and it's more so since having my boy, is the early wake up calls, to get out on the road, and it's a needs must. I know we need to drive to the events, and it can take sometimes a few hours but yeah, ever since having sort of lack of sleep, I guess, and not even now he's catching up with sleeping through the night. I still don't feel the benefits of it. That yeah, I think the waking up early and going to the events is the one where I'm like, oh, like having to get up at sort of when it's pitch black, and sneaking around the house to try and get out without waking anyone up. That's, yeah, I'd definitely say is my least favorite part. But once I'm there, it's all right. Once I'm at the event,
Yeah.
I'm ready to go. I'm in work mode. But it's that getting up and jumping in the shower half asleep, and then getting on the road, and the aimless miles of motorway. I'm just like, oh, this
Yeah.
is long.
But we don't do any events close to you, really, do we?
Yeah,
I mean,
well, yeah,
London's going to be close to you next year,
yeah.
but we have, this year everything's been a bit of a schlep for you.
Yeah, it's just the way the industry is, it's always been like that. It's yeah, I knew, I sort of took that oath, when I started in the industry, that nothing really happens down south really. It's either further down south, towards the sort of Devon and Cornwall that way,
Yeah.
or but a lot of it is Birmingham and higher up than that.
Yeah, yeah, I know. That's why we do our events
Yeah, yeah.
so far north. Um, so over the last few years, you've said there's been changes. You've said it looks exciting. What do you think the industry is going to look like in maybe a year, 5 years time?
You know, ah, you can never tell. We've had a pandemic and things like that, so you can never tell. Unfortunately, what's around the corner. But during that time and sort of the lead off from that over the next couple of years, and even now, times are tough, but they the companies that and the people that I spoke to, they always get through it. There's always that resiliency that they do to get through it, and I can't see that changing ever really. It's always the way that, regardless of the hard times, and it is hard times for some. We can't sort of say that it isn't, but like, we'll get through it. So yeah, I think it'll be a positive, hopefully, with the people that are in it. Like, hopefully that is the way forward. But I'm sure people will say, well, it could be tough, and it might be tough, but yeah, definitely the people in it will make it stronger.
And talking of people, we have got a skill shortage. We've got a real difficulty with attracting people into the industry at the moment. If you ask, absolutely, as you've said, if you ask anybody in the industry, that's going to be one of their biggest issues. What can we do together in order to help people to move that along? Or is there anything that we can do to help the professionalisation of the industry, to help make it more attractive? Are we in a position where we can do that? And if we are, what are we doing it? Or
Yeah.
how are we doing it?
I think we do. I, as I said, I wanted to stay in this industry because of the people, and I guess at Pigs we are the people in Glazing Society, with the emphasis on the people. So I
Yeah.
think from a Pigs point of view, with us as a team, to actually emphasize those stories about people, I think we kind of we have all these stories in the industry, but they don't really get outside of our industry. So we know how good our industry is, but not a lot of people outside of the industry know. So I think if we push those stories out further, I think we'll hopefully attract people. There's people that have, as we've had on the podcast, that have been in the sector sort of 20, 30, 40, even longer in years in the industry. So there's
Yeah.
got to be a reason why that they're staying in. It's easy enough to get another job in a different industry for in some industries. So why are they staying? And I think that's what we need to do, is to sort of ask those questions of why did you stay, and again, as we've had on the podcast, that there is that route to the top, I guess, or for your career. You can start right sort of right down the bottom, as such, in inverted commas, at the bottom, on the shop floor and things like that, and actually work your way up to the MD, or see, like, there's people in this industry that have done that route. So it's I think that's good for people that want to progress their career, that actually there is a route up. So I think,
Yeah.
again, that's what I want to do as editor, and for the same for Pigs in general, is to show that there is a way to have a successful career.
There's literally no glass ceiling. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You can get away with it. It's Christmas.
Oh dear. Um, so transferable skills then. If we're looking at, I mean, both you and I work in the industry, and we've got skills that will transfer into pretty much anything. You can go and be an editor. I'm a marketer. I can do those things, any industry, but we choose to stay within this one. But we're not part of the big supply chain.
Yeah.
We're much more on the periphery of it. But when you're looking at the supply chain, there's so many different jobs and roles around, and so many people could come into the industry. So there's a lot of places where transferable skills will work. So do you see that as one of the things that we should be promoting?
Yeah, that's exactly it. There is so many jobs, but as I said, not sort of pushing that glass ceiling to actually see outside of the industry. For people that are looking into it, they probably don't know that there's that many roles in the industry. So I guess it's to show you how wide scale the jobs can be. I wanted a career in media, and I do work in media. In the glazing sector. So
Yeah.
they'll probably I didn't know that before I started, that there was these sort of magazines and things like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's a job here for pretty much everyone. Somewhere, whether it be on the media side of things like we do, or working in a factory, or installing, whatever it may be, there is a job for you. If you want to work in the office, you can work in the office. It's there is so much. So yeah, definitely the adaptability and the skills that you have will definitely work in our industry, without a doubt.
And if you were going to sell this industry to somebody, so if you had somebody come up to you and say, well, do you think I should take a job in the industry? What would you say to them?
I'd say absolutely. it's given people really successful careers, as we said. So if you're looking for a successful way you can climb that ladder, then you've got that. And yeah, going back to the people, you won't ever be bored in the industry. As we know at pigs events, the people that come there, you'll never be bored, you'll never be alone, I guess, is what you can
Yeah.
say. You can go to a pigs event for the first time, you don't know anyone, and you'll have a conversation. It might not necessarily be a work conversation, it can be just a general conversation, but that you can approach anyone in the industry, and they'll be able to have a chat with you and tell it to you. So they'll be much better at selling it than I would. But I'd say definitely, if you want to talk about our industry, then there's always someone that'll be here to talk to you about it, and what could be good for it.
Cool. And I hate to do this to you, but describe our industry in three
Mm.
words.
So this is the question I ask obviously on the podcast, and it's always been that we you get quite sort of similar words. So I apologize in advance if I've stolen anyone from previous episodes words. I haven't been able to watch back every episode before this to remember what everyone said. So I've written down resilient. As I said, it's we are a resilient. We bounce back from everything that goes on in our industry, with times being tough. So yeah, definitely resilient, passionate. As we've seen on podcast episodes before, people are passionate about this industry, and if you say a bad word about it, they will tell what's for. So definitely a passionate industry, and exciting. From my point of view, it's been exciting. It's full of brilliant stories, as I said. And yeah, I think like I said, there's much more to come in the future.
Yeah, I think they're brilliant words. Absolutely, absolutely superb. And yes, most of them have been used before, but that's because we are a resilient and, amazing and industry. And
Yeah.
yeah, it is so good to be part of it.
Yeah,
So going on to the events, you've been to all the events this
I
year.
have. Yeah.
So any standout moments for you?
Do you know what? And it might sound a bit, oh, he's just saying that, but actually, our Newcastle event this year was the one that stood out for me. Oh, it was our first year being in Newcastle, and I love Newcastle as a city anyway, so it was obviously great to go up there. But you know, we the venue was amazing, so that was sort of the
Yeah.
standout bit for me was to turn up, before the event started and go, wow, we're like right on the quayside here. You can see the bridge, and the lights were on once it got dark. And yeah, I was just like, oh my god, we struck gold here with our venue. It was so yeah, definitely that would be my sort of highlight of this year was Pigs Newcastle being so successful and having over 100 people turn up to a first year event. And yeah,
Yeah.
where we were was fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. I think I would agree with you on that one. Um, and how important do you think the networking events are? How relevant are they in today's business?
Yeah, massive. We lost a few years with COVID where we couldn't, and where we couldn't see each other. But things like this where we can do a recording online has come out of it, which is brilliant. But you can't beat that face to face interaction. Of meeting people and catching up with people, and meeting new people. That's more important. We for pigs this year, we've had a lot of new people turn up for the first
Yeah.
time this year. And we could do it online, we could have some sort of online event, but you don't get that sort of same relationship build up as what you would do in person. So yeah, that our events have been fantastic for the industry, I think. And things like the Fit Show next year, and are really important to show us what we're about. We're a very personable industry, and you can't get that until you've come to an event. So
Yeah, yeah. I think again, we're on the same page on this one, aren't you? Aren't we? So if you were in charge of hosting pigs in one town or city, where would you take it? Have you got a favourite place?
yeah, I mean, there's been some really good ones that we've had over the year of doing the podcast. we've had America, we've had all over the place. And I think, I'll pick one from the UK, and pick one from, further afield. So somewhere I've always wanted to go, is Edinburgh. I think that would be a really
Okay.
nice event, up north in Scotland. And goes without saying that the Scots are great to have a party, and the pigs party will definitely happen in Edinburgh. And I think further afield, I've always wanted to go to New York. So, especially with it being Christmas time, and as you can see with our Christmas trees in the background, we can do a Christmas pigs in New York, where we can go and
Okay.
see the Christmas tree.
Okay. I think that's an absolutely
Done.
brilliant
Deal
idea.
done.
Oh, yeah. Let me look into that one. Um, and I've already asked you about if you were going to host two pigs in a pod, who your guest would be, but you get the choice every week, so it's
Yeah.
not a really very fair question. So, what we do every time, or what you do every time, is
Yeah.
we ask quick fire questions to get
Yeah.
to the nitty gritty. Now, we're supposed to do it in 60 seconds, but I am just going to ask you a shed load of questions so we can get under the skin of George Lewis.
Yeah, this is where you can't think about it too much. It's like, oh, okay.
So, favorite day of the week?
Oh, I'm always a weekend person, Saturday person. Football's on, so yeah, normally on a Saturday. So yeah, that's my where I can relax, and obviously spend time with the family as well. So it's Saturday's the one for me.
Phone or email?
Definitely email. I love talking. I love talking face to face. So if it was between face to face or on the phone, I'd say definitely face to face. But I do love an email. I'm guessing I'm of that era, where emails were a new thing. Sort of when. So yeah, I guess email is the one for me.
First gig you ever attended?
Oh, the first gig I ever attended was with my mum, obviously, and it was to go and see Simply Red.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was
Yes.
that was quite cool. It was in Hyde Park, I think it was. So yeah, that was quite a
Right.
and obviously Mick
Yes.
Hucknall was an amazing seeing. So I didn't really take it in, I guess, as sort of as in early teens, maybe even before that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And more my era than yours as
yeah.
well. So, favorite thing to do outside of work?
Well, play sport is my main thing. I like to play football when I can, and cricket when I can. And now since having Jude, it's spending time with the family and seeing him grow up is and taking him places, especially around Christmas as we're doing this. It's amazing to see sort of fresh eyes on the world. It's quite nice to see someone see something for the first time. So yeah, definitely if it from a personal point, definitely sport or with hanging out with the family.
And what's your go-to breakfast?
Oh, good question. I mean, I do like a full English. I wouldn't be British without saying a full English, but that has to be like I have to be in the mood for that. So if I just go as people have seen that have been away with me on trips and stuff. I just like a nice pan of chocolate or something, and a cup of tea. I'm quite an easy person with a pastry or a croissant or something like that, and a nice British cup of tea.
And do you have a go-to karaoke song?
Oh, I wouldn't say I have a go-to. I've sung a few in my time very badly, mind. I'd say my favorite song of not that I'd be able to sing it. My favorite song of all time is by Luther Vandross, Never Too Much. So I'd say if I had to go to, but you can't beat a bit of Sweet Caroline or something like that to with when you're with friends to get everyone going.
Yeah, absolutely. What was the last thing you Googled?
Oh, well, my son is currently ill, so it was to see what is croup and should I be worried about croup. So for all the parents out there, I'm sure they're definitely around this time will be googling things like I do. But yeah, it was what is croup and should I be worried?
Yeah. Well, it's
And I'm not, and it's
horrendously.
so fine. It's just a
Yeah,
very
it
very
sounds so awful
yeah
though, but actually you're right. It's not too much to worry
yeah.
about. What's your favorite place to visit, or where's your favorite place to visit?
Uh, so I like going, being born in London. I like going up to London now. I moved out when I left secondary school. So now it sort of adds that sort of enjoyment factor of going to London. So it's not far from me. There's so much to do and things like that. So yeah, I'd say London is my favorite place to visit. But if I had to go somewhere hot, I do love the Canary Islands or Balearic Islands. That's where me and my wife seem go most years, so yeah, that's probably our go-to place would be somewhere there.
And who is your hero?
Oh, like, I definitely say, and I know I've spoken to you about this lots of times, but definitely my mum. Growing up with sort of just my mum around, my mum and my nan they're two powerhouse women in my life that have given me a good life. So they would definitely be my heroes. They've given me everything that I need to do, and if I can pay them back in any way I could, I would.
You probably do.
Don't know about that. I give Jude to my mum every Monday, so she's like, oh, for goodness sake.
Yeah, and she's probably very grateful for
Yeah,
it.
and I am
Um,
too.
yeah. Um, and who would you like to play you in a movie?
Or I don't know. I guess I don't know. I don't even know who there would be. No one would want to watch a movie of myself. I guess a young, not that he's in it, but I say a Danny Dye. A Cockney geezer like I am. He was in a lot of films, sort of when I grew up, sort of being
Yeah,
that young, sort of my age now, where he's a young boy. So yeah, I'd say a young Danny Dyer.
nice. Um, and would you rather have more time or more money?
I mean, as people have said on this, I'd rather have both. If I can have both, but definitely more time. It feels like this year, especially, has flown past. And
Yeah,
it's crazy to think. We started in January, and now what we've had. We've had 4 fantastic events, and that's just on the pig side of things. Along with the podcast that's going really well, and everything else, and that's just on one side, and obviously we won't go into too much on a pigs podcast, but with modern joinery as well, it's
yeah.
that so yeah, more time to do those and make those successful would be great, and more time to spend doing nice things as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's always lovely to have more money, but
Yeah.
the time thing is you can't put a value on it almost, can you?
No,
It's
no, I
it's
definitely feel like it's, time's getting quicker as I'm getting older, and I'm just like, oh my god, I used to be like I was at university and then, going out and things like that. And it's just like, yeah, they're long gone now. They're well in the back in the rear view mirror. So it's quite scary to think, I was only doing that the other day. And it's like, actually, you finished university in sort of 11 years ago. And it's like, oh my goodness, where did that go?
yeah, well, like that, I think is
Yeah.
the answer. What time of day do you feel more in the zone?
Definitely not the morning anymore. I think nighttime, I have a nice nighttime peak, once. Yeah, I definitely feel like I can work, sometimes at night when Jude's gone to sleep and things like that. It's where I can actually focus and, relax. Yeah, so I'm definitely a nighttime person, but yeah, it's the hours where I'm in the zone is getting smaller and smaller, I think, at the moment.
And where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
It's a good question. Who knows? Like from a personal point of view, definitely be in a new house. The flat that I'm living in now is getting smaller by the day with a growing child. So yeah, definitely from that. But I'd love to still be at pigs. I think as we said about the charity side of things, that's opened my eyes massively. Is to the charity work, and yeah, I'd love to be doing lots more for charity, working with pigs, and having more events, around the country. I think we can do a little road trip, where we touch base with lots of people within the industry of all over the UK and even further afield. Like we said, maybe not New York, but definitely, or maybe so. But it's the industry, the glazing industry in the UK is strong. But there's places in, Germany and mainland Europe, that the sectors are strong there as well. And and we don't really touch that as a media really. So it would be good to understand their ways of working, and events there would be great.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. We'll have to talk about that.
Yeah.
um, Thank you. I did ask you all those questions because I think it's quite mean to ask them to our normal guests.
Yeah. Oh,
But
yeah. It's definitely mean, because it's the only part that they don't get to like write down anything for. So
yeah,
yeah, it's definitely good to get to know
yeah. So
people.
yeah,
But
I did feel that you should answer every single one of them. So
yeah.
yeah. Um, and lastly, to wrap this up, we always give guests, or you always give guests, the opportunity to give a shout out to anyone they want. So over to you, George.
Yeah, so my wife would probably kill me if I didn't shout her out. So yeah, my first shout out would be to Rachel. She's been for pretty much most of my career in the industry, has been a part of my life. So yeah, definitely a shout out to her, and obviously to, as I mentioned a few times, to my boy Jude, who probably won't care but does sometimes watch the odd episode and see, oh, there's Daddy. So yeah, I'd like to give him a shout out for real on this one to him. So yeah, they're definitely my two. But a shout out to everyone that's been on the podcast as well. Like, I literally couldn't do the podcast without you. So yeah, thanks to everyone that's been on the podcast this year.
Excellent. I just wanted to say how brilliant it's been working with you this year. I wanted to say how wonderful it's been having our events and touching so many people's lives when we've been doing our charity stuff. I wanted to say thank you so much for everybody that supported Kelly's Heroes this year with our charity of the year. Um, but apart from that, I just wanted to say thank you to you, George. You've made it really easy for us. We've come in with a brand new newsletter. We've got podcasts going out every other week. And it's been brilliant working with you. So I'm now going to hand back to you to say, to do the sign off. But thank you for allowing me to be the host today.
No, no problem at all. And yeah, you're welcome to be our host, our guest host. And I'm sure and I say this with twisting my moustache, that we'll see you on the podcast again next year. But yeah, I'd like to obviously reiterate that thank you to everyone that's let me back into the industry, for one, to let me be part of the glazing industry again, and have come to the events. And it's been brilliant to get to know a lot more people. Like, you sort of get lost in the the PR world and the marketing world, where you know a lot of names, but you don't necessarily know a lot of people in like directly. So yeah, it's been great to actually get to know lots of people. And yeah, and of course, thanks to yourself and Andy for again, from my point of view, making it easy to come with you with ideas of how we can do this. And just being that person to ask questions. And yeah, and can't wait for next year to do it all again, and go even bigger. It's a fit show year, which makes it even bigger. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a big one.
Absolutely.
Well, as the host, I've taken back my hosting duties. I'd like to say thanks to everyone that's given us the opportunity to be on the podcast this year. And again, thanks to Sarah for hosting it to this time. So that's it for today. So you can find all our this episode and all others on our website, www.peopleinglazing.co.uk, on our YouTube channel, or wherever you get your podcasts from. So once again, thanks to everyone, and Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.